Hi all, I have a cute little miniature chess game of Garry Kasparov to show you against none other than John Nunn, one of Britain's greatest grandmasters. It was played in the Brussels tournament of 1986. Kasparov kicked off with d4. John Nunn replied with knight f6. You saw c4, g6, now knight f3, as though there's going to be a king's Indian defence. Kasparov plays now g3. And against this fianchetto variation, we have a transposition into the Grunfeld defence because John Nunn plays c6. He's going to play d5 as kind of Grunfeld territory instead. So bishop g2, d5, and now Kasparov took on d5, c takes d5. So in this fixed pawn structure, the e5 square is quite useful to white, the dart square grip. Knight c3, black castles, and now we have the knight using the e5 square, putting uncomfortable pressure immediately on d5. Now black here played what seems to be a passive move, but it's the main move, e6, just supporting this pawn. It's hemming in, of course, this bishop, so black has some opening problems to try and solve here. White now castled. Now we have knight fd7. This is the most popular move, challenging the knight with the pressure from the fianchettoed bishop joining in here. And white now plays f4, so white is accepting the possibility of doubled pawns. But usually players with black here don't take on e5. For example, knight c6 here has seen over 300 games on live books, so this continuation, where black is meant to be okay, can put defensive resources against white pressurizing d5 here, for example, like this, and most of the problems are starting to be solved here. It's meant to be about equal. But in this game we see John Nunn taking on e5, and perhaps this offers white a little bit more dynamic play than the continuation we've just seen. After f takes, white has the potential here to put pressure on d5 with e4. Black stops that, it seems, for the moment though, by playing knight c6, a typical prophylaxis type move. So against e4, surely that's not playable now. Well, guess what? Kasparov plays this move anyway, despite knight c6. So what happens? D takes e4, and d4 is attacked, so white has no time to take on e4. So white actually just casually protects with bishop e3, the d4 pawn, and is going to play knight takes e4 next with a fantastic position. You can imagine knight f6 after that. So black has to do something against this very simple plan. He seems to be already in a passive position here. He plays f5 against this simple plan from white. And Kasparov takes on f6, rook takes f6, but of course white is regaining the pawn with seemingly a pleasant position here. After rook takes f1 check, queen takes f1, but hold on a sec, this pawn surely can be taken now, or is black worried about rook d1? Well, this is actually black's last chance to equalise properly. He has to play the right move here. Black in this position must actually play, it seems, bishop takes d4. If bishop takes d4 was played, this should be equal. After bishop takes, knight takes, although it seems very scary and against principle to give up the fianchetto bishop, this might be a case where it's entirely necessary. Rook d1, e5, and here black's difficulties should be limited, so giving up that dark square bishop to take on d4. But instead, we actually see in this position knight takes d4, and this is slightly riskier. Well, in fact, it's a big advantage now to white after rook d1. Here, white is threatening things like queen c4, so something has to be done about this knight, because that would pin the pawn and use that horrible pin there against the queen. So black reinforces the knight with e5. But now, instead of queen c4 check, which would allow bishop e6, something much stronger. Knight g5, so cutting out the bishop e6 resource. And now white is threatening queen c4 and coordinating with knight f7. In this position, you might find it shocking that John Nunn actually resigned here against multiple threats. Also, there's another potential threat, queen f7, which could be useful in some variations. And there's this lurking bishop as well. So why did black resign here? Let's have a look. Let's rule out king h8, because there's immediately here knight f7 check, forking queen and king. So getting off that diagonal is not possible simply with king h8. If queen f8, then here check. This is really dangerous. After knight f7 check, knight takes e5 dismantles black. Bishop e6, you might think, attacking the queen. Well, there's bishop d5 here. This is a crushing blow. For example, knight f3 check. We can take this and then just win material. So we're material up here quite safely. So that's no good. Queen f8 is not faring very well. The biggest test, and this was seen actually prior to this game in the correspondence game, queen e7, but it fails. Bishop d5 check, and now if bishop e6, there's a crushing blow here in the form of rook takes d4. So protecting the bishop and weakening the protection of e6, and okay, two pieces for the rook, but unfortunately in this position black is just forcibly losing after knight f6 check, knight f7 check, pardon me, knight d8 check, breaking a flank protection and protecting the bishop, king h8, and now the crushing move, bishop g5. This is an absolutely crushing move in this position. So that if queen takes g5, we have knight f7 check, forking queen and king. And like in the correspondence game before this game, queen b4, this forcibly loses here after knight f7 check, knight e5, discovered check, and here knight takes g6, which is forcing mate after hg, queen h3 check, forcing checkmate like this. Apparently, some days later, a local fan produced the news that the whole sequence up to queen h3 had been played before in a correspondence game, Hjort against M. Anderson, and it was published actually in a Swedish publication for correspondence games. Kasparov apparently had not seen it, although his second, Nikitin, mentions it in '64 that it was tempting to increase Kasparov's already great authority by claiming he had. But apparently he hadn't. But yeah, a crushing game, and just shows you sometimes in chess you've got to play a counterintuitive move in order to survive. And here, giving up the precious dark square bishop, which seems to be a game move against principle, is actually the only move to stay in the game. It seems bishop takes d4, and then black's problems would have been mostly solved. But knight takes d4, just a forced loss really after rook d1, e5, knight g5. Black cannot cope with all the dynamic pressure and threats in this position, as we have seen. Hope you enjoyed that one. Comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.